have your permission to punch someone?
No. Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. May I have attention, please? All quiet, please. Thank you. Welcome back from the break. Let's go ahead and take out your notes. We're going to be continuing with our unit on the Constitution. Okay, then I think I need to give you this. Okay, and those are in the notes to So, oh, you're doing today?
I don't even know.
Okay.
I'm here every day.
Oh, okay. So you can take care of it today and catch up on the other ones. Yeah,
I don't know what to do for this.
I know. We've actually, and it's cool. You can just come in here. You can bring some work with you tomorrow if you want to. No, that's fine. That's fine. Because you're normally on green days. But the seniors are coming every day. So, here we go. We'll get you all caught up. Yeah. In fact, while I'm at it, let me ask you, I need to set up a time to take the test on authoritarian government. We can do it after school or lunch. Yeah, for government. I've got Michael coming in after school on Thursday. You can come Thursday. You probably want to give yourself some time. And you've got another test on Thursday in my other class. Do you want to wait till Friday? Unless you can do them both. Okay, we'll do this real quick. You want to do Thursday after school? Okay, so just make sure you go over all the material because there's a lot of stuff there. Okay, it's Thursday after school. All right, so having notes out, we were looking at impeachment. Impeachment. We were looking at some examples in our United States Constitution of how impeachment is dealt with. Okay? It's in Article 1 of the United States Constitution. We were looking at some examples of impeachment. In fact, it was kind of interesting because impeachment has popped up again in the last week. I'm like, really? There is a president right now who, President Trump, has got just over 2 weeks left in his presidency. But some people are very concerned about President Trump communicating with the man who's in charge of elections in Georgia and communicating to get a different result from what came out in November. And so they're like, we should impeach him. And they're like, well, he's almost gone, because what is the ultimate potential biggest negative impact of an impeachment, JT? If you get impeached, if you're the President of the United States, what does that mean? It doesn't mean you die, no. It means you've been charged with a wrongful offense. And then what happens? Raise your hand if you can answer the question, and then what happens? We gotta get you guys recapped here. Jana, let's start us back up a little bit here. Let's just kind of go back a little bit to, actually, even before Nixon, Johnson. Was Johnson impeached? Yes. Okay, we got that in your notes. Who or what impeached him? I'll be even more clear. What part of the United States government impeached him, said, we charge you with doing wrong stuff? Yep, House of Representatives, very good. And then what would be the worst thing that could possibly happen to Johnson with respect to that impeachment? He could lose his job, right? That's the second part. Were they going to have a trial or something? Yes, and where do they have the trial? Perfect, very good. So Johnson, President Johnson, who, if you look over at my chart over here, he was the 17th President of the United States. He was impeached by the House. David, do you remember? What do you need in order to be impeached? Like 3/4 of a vote of the House, 2/3, or a simple majority? Yep, simple majority. Very good. And so then they had the trial in the Senate. And was he convicted and removed from office? Johnson, no, he wasn't. What is the percentage that you need in the Senate for a conviction and therefore removal from office? I'll give you two choices. 3/4 or 2/3? How many of you guys raise your hand say it was 2/3? How many of you guys raise your hand say it was 3/4? 3/4. Make sure in your notes you have it written down as 2/3. Okay, 2/3. It's a little bit less, but that's what was required for that. So it's a little. Put it bluntly, or simply, it's easier to get impeached than it is to be convicted and removed. Okay, got that? All right, and that is a big, big power. Has it happened since then? It almost happened to Nixon. We talked about that very briefly. He was in the process of getting impeached. Situation dealing with the Watergate scandal in the early 1970s. But Trey, do you remember? Before he got impeached, what happened?
Like what did he do to get impeached?
What did he do to not get impeached?
He resigned.
Yep, he resigned. Yeah, so I mean, the ultimate thing that can happen to you after the impeachment is you get fired. Well, he beat him to it. He quit. Okay, so he resigned. So they never did follow through with the impeachment. They did he quit. So this is kind of and you'll want to make sure to go back and watch the videos, right? Because if you guys were gone, you wanted to watch the videos because we did the test on the last unit, and we've already covered the impeachment part. If you look at section Article 1, Section 2, we got impeachment charges. That basically, we talked about that last time as far as like the House does that. If you go down to the bottom of Section 3, that talks about how the Senate does that. And this is one where we flipped around a little bit. If you go to page 3, you're like, well, on what grounds can somebody be impeached and removed from office? Article 2, Section 4 on page 3. So flip over to page 3. It's like just after the fourth bullet point there, you see Section 4. You have to have either treason, bribery, or high crimes and misdemeanors, which is kind of vague-ish, right? And it depends on the perspective of the people in the House and the Senate. Some of them might say, that's really bad, but it doesn't rise to the level of something impeachable so that you could be removed from office. And other people are like, yeah, it does. So we get into those debates, okay? And that's where we were with the next example, okay? With the next example. Just to kind of check in so that this is not left without comment, I don't see you guys on Mondays anymore. I see you on Tuesdays and Thursdays. On Mondays, I have the optional office hour, but frankly, if you need to get in contact with me, probably you're going to do it face-to-face here at school. But nevertheless, I'll be on. I'll set up a Zoom, a regular time if people want to check in. And I suppose this is going to probably fall more to the students who are regularly at home. But I'll have that from 12:45 to 1:45. Be sure to Zoom in by 12:55, because if I don't have anybody Zooming in by that time, I'll be like, I think I'll have something else that I need to work on. Check in with your other classes and so forth. How many of you guys, I'm just kind of curious, how many of you guys are now doing regular Zoom when you're at home on Wednesdays and Fridays? For what classes?
Well, economics optional, science and English required, and
Okay.
pretty much all of them are optional except science and English.
Does that sound about right, depending on, and math as well? Okay. So far, I think we're going to be okay. I know I don't like to give up a day, Monday, but at the same time, I've heard a lot of feedback that students prefer, if they can, having the face-to-face interaction rather than set up a screen at home. Okay? Sometimes I will have video for you guys to watch, but that won't necessarily be like at 1:10 till 1:55. It could be stretched out over a different time. But you need to make sure that if you're gone or you're at home, you're regularly watching those things that are posted, especially if it's in-class stuff, because otherwise you'll be like falling behind and it's going to be not so good. Okay? So that's because you never know when all of a sudden somebody goes, oh dear, you were within 6 feet of me over such a period of time, you have to stay home for 2 weeks. Because that would kind of stuck. I mean, it's happened to some of you guys, and some of you guys actually in here. Yeah.
What happened if you got sick?
I don't even want to go there. But if I could, if I had to be quarantined, I would be teaching it from home. I'd just take the camera back and set it up, and I would post those regularly. I think that's probably how I would do it. But if I'm really sick, then I don't know. That's not good.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, I meant like if you have to go home, but in general, like, you sick.
There would be a substitute that would come in, and then I would set up the instruction.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't have a thing set up like Mrs. Rao does, which is where she teaches from home, and she's got somebody in the classroom to like monitor and keep that going and so forth. So, I mean, you've had other subs in other classes, right? Yeah, I haven't had a sub in here yet. Try not to. Try to stay healthy.
You had that one guy who did the careful with no. Oh, this is fun. What? Oh, yeah, this is fun.
That was beginning of last year. That's true. Yeah, I did have to. Yeah, yeah, anyway. So generally, though, no, I don't. All right. Other questions, technical questions, and so forth. All right, let's get to Bill Clinton. All right, here we go. We're going through the examples of Bill Clinton and his impeachment situation. Oh, I hate to dwell on this one too much because sometimes to get into the knowledge and understanding of the particular situation, you need to know some certain things about certain events, and some of it's like, really? Ooh, I just feel like I need to take a shower after learning about what happened in the impeachment Bill Clinton situation. Because I'm sorry, I mean, I remember when it was taking place in the 1990s, and I was explaining this because students are like, well, what's going to happen? What's going on with this impeachment thing and the president? I mean, because that's important. It's government. So, just to back it up a little bit, there's Bill Clinton, married to Hillary Clinton. They're married. They have a daughter. He gets elected president of the United States, but questions pop up about his relationship with other women, right? So, Jennifer Flowers is another woman who is not an employee. Very important point. Not an employee. So, if he is having a relationship with Jennifer Flowers, I think he was breaking some vows to his wife, and Hillary wasn't really happy about it, but they felt like they weren't going to, I mean, she didn't divorce him. They continued on, and but this is the more complicated one. This is the one you really need to know. This is the one that, you can write it down in your notes. The Paula Jones case. Some of you guys remember. Raise your hand if you can tell me. How is the Paula Jones situation different?
Didn't she like accuse him of like something in the office?
Making an advance. And in the office she was a state employee in Arkansas where he was the governor. Do you understand that? So if you have a work situation someday and you're the boss and you go up to one of your employees and say, hey, I want to have an intimate relationship with you, you could very well be creating a hostile work environment. You're like, oh. I mean, it really makes it a bit of a challenge as far as like entering into dating relationships in a similar workplace. And anyway, but here's what the allegation was. She said no to the governor, and then, according to her, she was, I want to say, demoted or put into a negative work situation. Do you understand that? So basically what she was saying is she was being punished by this guy because he wouldn't take no for an answer. Got that? So she brings a lawsuit against Clinton. Well, Clinton is in the White House now, right? He's been elected. So, I mean, so the lawsuit is going on. Those things happen. And one of the things that happens in the course of a lawsuit is you gather information, right? So, for example, if you're a Paula Jones attorney and you're trying to help prove that Bill Clinton is tried to have an intimate relationship with my client, Paula Jones, what could help prove that that is a true thing? Because he's saying that that never really happened. You got some ideas? Yeah? Yeah? Exactly. Perfect. Write it down. You try and find evidence of other kinds of things like that. I mean, it's kind of like, I want to prove that you behave like this, and if I can find some other examples of this and this and this, I've kind of proven, there's a little similarity and so forth going on there, right? So anyway, Paula Jones' attorneys get wind that he is having a relationship, an intimate relationship, within his current workplace, President of the United States. And the House Well, it's an office as well as a place to sleep. I mean, you sleep in the residential quarters, and then you come down and you work in the West Wing. With Monica Lewinsky, who is, at that time, I want to say she was maybe 19, 20, 21 at tops, fairly young, young female intern. And she had said something to somebody, because people talk, and so she said something to a confidant, and that confidant shared that with Paula Jones' attorneys, and then they're like, okay, we want to find out what's going on there. And so they started asking questions, and so the word started spreading around. And did we play the video last time? This was after Bill Clinton had been elected a second time. And Bill Clinton was asked questions. Did you have a relationship with Monica Lewinsky? Well, there we go. You can write that down. He denied it. Now, was he under oath when he denied it? No, not at that time. Okay, he went on camera to the American public, and he denied it. In fact, according to a story that came out later on, one of his top advisors, he talked to one of his top advisors, and he's like, oh, this isn't going to be good. What should I do? What should I do? Should I admit it and say that I was wrong in having a relationship with her? Or should I deny it? And, because she's not going to admit to it. She's not going, she's not the one making the accusation. That he's having these relationships in office could help prove Paula Jones's case was that he liked to start relationships in office, but she's not going to admit to it. And so the advisor was like, well, how about if I, get this, I take a poll. What? I take a poll. I do like a random sample of, I don't know, maybe 300 or 100 American people and ask them a hypothetical question. How would you react if your president had a relationship or cheated on his wife or had a relationship with some young person or something like that? Just to see what the American public would think. As to whether or not he's going to tell the truth, well, they took a poll, and apparently the poll results came back, and the advisor told Clinton that, the American people are not going to like this. They're not going to like it. I mean, they already had some concerns about, like, this whole Jennifer Flowers thing that's popped up 4 years before, but they remember you and your wife came on television, said it's nobody's business, so just leave it at that. So he took the advice of the pollster, and he said, I'm going to deny it. So he denied it. Monica Lewinsky denied it. So is that where it ends up? Now, in politics, sometimes one side will see something going amiss on the other side, and they will want to look a little bit deeper, and so forth. Eventually, as it turns out, there was not just a question of he said, she said, but there was, some forensic evidence to show that he was lying and that Monica Lewinsky was lying and that they, in fact, did have an intimate relationship in that White House just off of the main office. I'm going to tell you in just a second. Okay? Forensic, as in like DNA. Yeah. Anyway, so here it is. Do I have the picture? Oh, there we go. Yeah, so there was an investigation into this. They investigated and so forth, and the investigator, whose last name was Starr, who was the independent counsel investigating, and they found out that there existed a dress. It was the personal, please, let's try and keep this as mature as possible. It was the personal possession of Monica Lewinsky. And apparently she was wearing that on an occasion where she was having intimate relations with the president. And the president left DNA material on her dress. And instead of taking her dress to the dry cleaners, she hung it up in her closet. And apparently told this confidential friend about it. And then when the investigators found out about it, that there is potentially something that they could check to see if Clinton had left DNA on her dress, they got the dress, they checked it out, and guess whose DNA was on the dress? Well, hers was, yeah, I mean, she wore it. but so was his, from an intimate encounter that they two had had in the White House.
Police statement for Columbus.
It was not. No, I mean, it's like, I mean, hello. Does anyone else have any question as to what exactly was on the dress?
Blood.
If not, no, it was not blood. If not, go see Mr. Holliday. He will teach you about this. Have you already had that last year? No, you have it this year? This year. Did you have you guys covered that topic yet? Oh, you guys are taking health next semester? Oh, well, be sure to ask him about Monica Lewinsky's dress. Anyway, it's like, how'd that get there? Ah, can you imagine? It's like, oh my gosh, students are asking, so why does this dress prove that he's lying? The DNA. And he's busted, right? So he's busted. So what does he do now? He gets on television. And of course, since he's busted, it's like, he was lying. And to the American public, make sure you understand that, because lying under oath, raise your hand if you can tell me, what is it called when you lie under oath? It's called perjury. And that is an offense. You lie under oath about something very important, it's perjury. But just lying to the American public, that's another thing. Although he was put under oath by the investigator and asked a whole bunch of questions about Lewinsky, et cetera, et cetera. And that's going to be an issue. And so now when the dress comes out, it was awkward. I'll play the thing that Bill Clinton came on the American television and admitted that he, misled the public. But this is an important point. Needless to say, stories have been told about how his wife, Hillary Clinton, was not very happy with him and perhaps threw some things at him as well. Okay? Because he had not told her the truth and he had had this relationship with this intern. That's the daughter. That's Chelsea Clinton. And so they're actually walking out trying to mend their relationship, and they're still together. I mean, they're still married and everything and so forth. Yeah. So, yeah. So when Hillary Clinton was running for president, twice, he was like her biggest supporter, out there campaigning for her and so forth and everything. This is very interesting because Clinton basically said, okay, I did wrong, but here's the deal. It's not so wrong that I should leave office, that I should be impeached and convicted and removed from office. What he said was that it was important between a private relationship between him and his wife. Other people will make the argument, no, it's more than that, it's lying under oath. And that's a big deal. So we're going to get a debate back there, but he'll start it off. I'll play the tape here in just a sec. Go ahead. When he made that speech and he wagged his finger, that was just a press conference.
Wait a minute.
Where he said, I didn't have sexual relations with Monica Lewinsky. But later he'll be under oath when being asked questions about Monica Lewinsky, being asked questions by lawyers. That's going to be the relevant part.
Wait. So this is when he's office when he said, I did not do it?
Yeah, so this part he's going to say he did mislead people. Here we go. 4 minutes. This is to the American public. This is, again, after the DNA evidence pretty much showed something happened.
Good evening. This happened within this room on this day. I testified before the Office of Independent Counsel and grand jury.
Testified under oath.
Their questions, including questions about my private life. Questions no American citizen would ever want to answer. Still, I must take complete responsibility for all my actions, both public and private. And that is why I am speaking to you tonight. As you know, in a deposition in January, I was asked questions about my relationship with my Lewinsky. While my answers were legally accurate, I did not volunteer information. Indeed, I did have a relationship with Mr. Lewinsky that was not appropriate. In fact, it was wrong. It constituted a critical act in judgment and personal failure on my part, for which I am solely and completely responsible. But I told the grand jury today, and I say to you now, that at no time did I ask anyone to lie, to hide or destroy evidence, or to take any other I was also very concerned about protecting my family. The fact that these questions were being asked in a politically inspired lawsuit, which has since been dismissed, is a consideration too. In addition, I have real and serious concerns about an independent counsel investigation. It began with private business groups 20 years ago. Dealings, I might add, about which an independent federal agency found no evidence of any wrongdoing by me or my wife over 2 years ago. The independent counsel investigation moved on to my staff and friends, then into my private life. And now the investigation itself is under investigation. This has gone on too long, cost too much, and hurt too many innocent people. Now this matter is between me, the two people I love most, my wife and my daughter, and our God. I must put it right, and I am prepared to do whatever it takes to do so. Nothing is more important to me personally, but it is time. And I intend to reclaim my family life for my family. It's nobody's business but ours. Even presidents have private lives. It is time to stop the pursuit of personal destruction and the prying into private lives and get on with our national life. Our country has been distracted by this matter for too long. I take my responsibility for my part in all of this. That is all I can do. Now it is time, in fact, it is past time to move on. We have important work to do. Real opportunities to seize. Real problems to solve. Real security to face. And so tonight, I ask you to turn away from the spectacle of the past 7 months, to repair the fabric of our national history, and to return our attention to all the challenges and all the promise of the next American century. Thank you for watching, and good night.
Okay, so that was what President Clinton said on television. Okay, what did you think?
Okay, I feel like he was, like he admitted he did wrong and stuff, but really having to just say everyone should dismiss it so quickly when it's kind of like,
Are you saying that's self-serving?
no, it's not self-serving, but it's, like I get his point, he just kind of directed it the wrong way in a way.
Okay. What do you think? Okay, all right.
Well, I have two opinions, well, two things about it. First of all, you really said the same thing in different words like 5 times.
Okay.
And then the second thing I have is like, you don't just go on television and tell people not to do this.
Was he motivated to try and keep his job?
Yes.
Sure, yeah. I mean, he got busted. The DNA evidence was there. He got busted. And so he's motivated to do that. And we'll see. I mean, will he ultimately lose his job? I think you guys know the answer. Let me see. No, he finished his job in 2001 when George W. Bush took the oath of office, January 20th, 2001. It's going to be a question, though, and you'll write this down as far as like how it actually turned out in the House and the Senate. Okay? Yeah.
Well, this could, like, he could have been sincere. The thing that happens is, like, a ton of celebrities or whatever, like, they'll get exposed for something, and they'll instantly release, like, an apology. And most of the time, I mean, I think they may be sorry, but they may just...
Are you saying that's not sincere?
No, but they may do it not just because they actually feel sorry, but just by popular opinion, so they don't ruin
Are you saying that what they're saying is, I'm sorry, I got in trouble?
No, they're basically,
Yeah.
they just, I think they say it most of the time to keep their reputation and just it's popular opinion.
And it's tough because if somebody gets in trouble and they say they're sorry, are they saying they're sorry because they want the whole thing to go away? Or is there a real, like, I'm really, really sorry that I did this? Of course, some people are like, you've done this before, and so are we to take this as a real, true, like, repentance of improper behavior, yada, yada, yada? What do you think?
I think that the wife should have left what she could.
Okay, that's another question and so forth, and who gets to decide as far as the marriage?
Because listening to
They
that
do.
quote-unquote apology is not sound genuine. It just sounds very superficial.
Okay. Follow up.
I had a question.
Yes.
So with the college one,
Uh-huh.
did she tell, like, basically the world or whatever, or did he, like, were they having a, like, did they figure out they had a relationship?
No, again, the charge in the Paula Jones, she was an employee who she said he had come on to her. He made a proposition at work, so they never had a relationship like there. She said no, and so then she made she brought the lawsuit, so her name is in the lawsuit, and she basically said she was harmed because she said no. This is not something that should take place at work. It's basically sexual harassment at the workplace. Just because you got somebody who's an employee doesn't mean that they are subject to your every sexual whim as a boss. Do you understand that? Because that's not how we do things. Thankfully, the law has gotten to the point in this country, whereas if that sort of thing takes place, you're going to be in big trouble. So if you're going to ever go into management or something of people, you need to know those boundaries, because otherwise you're going to trip over them, and they're going to give you the exit door. Okay? So this is an interesting one. How would you vote? Now, let's go ahead and write this down. Okay? He was impeached. So therefore, JT, what was required in order to get an impeachment out of the House? What percentage of vote? No, not that high. Just a majority. Write that down. He was impeached in the House with a simple majority. And then it went to, and you got the picture here, they had a trial in the Senate. So you had different people coming over from the House, bringing the charges, and then you had the president's team defending, and they had the trial in the Senate. And you can see right here, presiding over the whole thing, he gets an extra little job that he has to do. That's the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. He presided over that trial. It's kind of weird, because it's like a jury trial, and who's the jury? 100 senators, right? So was he convicted and removed from office at the end of the day? No. What, Frank, would have been required for him to be convicted? 2/3, yeah. There was a majority, I think, on one of the charges. It was just over 50%. The other, I think, split at 50-50. Take a guess. What do you think? Mostly Democrats or Republicans voted to impeach and then convict? Republicans, yeah. So this ended up being a very partisan kind of a fight. Republicans and people who felt that he should be impeached and convicted basically were saying things like, he lied under oath. That's a very important thing that he did wrong. That rises to the level of high crime misdemeanor, therefore he should be gone. On the defense, President Clinton's team was saying he might not, I'm not going to necessarily agree that he lied under oath, but this is part of a partisan attack, and it's really only about consensual sexual relations within a workplace, and it's, you know, private between the president and his wife and Monica Lewinsky, and they're just trying to make a lot of hay out of it. So they're just using that. So you had it on both ways. How would you have voted? I'm going to ask you, how would you have voted? If you're a member of the House or Senate, how would you have voted? Do you want to chime in with any opinions to express before we take the vote? Because I've done this in the past with students, because I'm trying to get a sense of whether you think it rises to the level of, you got to go, or it's, shame on you, you shouldn't do that, but we're going to let you stay in your job. Do you guys have any opinions before we take the vote on that? As to, like, you know how you're going to vote, but do you want to try and influence anyone else?
I mean, it was serious because, wasn't it because he mainly lied under the oath? That was the big thing?
That was the big thing, yeah.
Okay, well, it was that. But as for the thing, I mean, it's still, it isn't like illegal to cheat on your spouse?
No.
Oh,
But there's other consequences. Yeah. I mean, in the past, historically, and there have been countries and so forth and laws that have basically said, I mean, there's some countries today, like if you like have relations outside of a marriage or something like in Iran or Saudi Arabia, the government will step in and they'll punish you. And it could be a death penalty administered right there on the street. I mean, they could stone you to death. Which is pretty intense. Have you ever like been stoned to death? I mean, they literally like throw stones until the person passes out, and they keep going until they're dead.
they used to do that in Jerusalem.
Yeah. Well, anyway, yeah.
Well,
How should people vote on this?
here's my opinion on it.
Okay.
First off, like, it all started because of cheating or having relations with people, but that's a choice, I guess.
But in the workplace, is it a choice? Because remember Paula Jones? She wasn't like Paula Jones wasn't like the TV reporter, Jennifer Flowers. She was a TV reporter that had a relationship, and ultimately he did admit that he did have a long-term relationship with her and so forth. But that was like outside of the workplace. But the Paula Jones one, that took place within the context of the workplace. So imagine you go to work someday and you've got a boss and he or she is interested in having relations with you, and you're like, oh, I'm not feeling very comfortable right now. And then you like say no, and then you get fired. Is that okay? No. Yeah, that's why there's laws that deal with that sort of stuff. Frank, what do you say?
I think taking politics out of it, if that were to happen in any other workplace, the guy would fire immediately. So I think taking politics.
So you're saying strict standard. Yeah, fire them. Okay? Go ahead.
It's overall uncomfortable situation for other employees too, because like once you figure out that's happened, who's next?
Yeah.
Just get rid of them.
Okay? We'll hear back from there and then there. Huh?
So I agree with him. It happens in any other workplace, no matter how much time you have, it shouldn't be okay. It's like you have no idea what the actual situation is, but it's
Yeah.
still not okay.
And it's interesting, on the Paula Jones lawsuit, as I recall, I think that ultimately was settled. In other words, he agreed to pay her some money to make that lawsuit go away instead of have it go to a trial and have all the details come out in a public trial. I mean, that's what happens when you settle a case. It's like, here, some money, it's gone. Go ahead, Trey, what do you think?
So, like I said, it is very serious and she did several times. And this is horrible and I think it's disgusting, but at the same time, she was consensual. So what I would say is they trick him into thinking he's convicted and then scare him and then say,
Okay.
okay, you get to stay in office. So he takes it
Okay.
really seriously.
Okay, well, I mean, he did stay in office, yeah.
I have some questions about my opinion. Was Paula Jones sexually assaulted?
No, not assaulted. You don't have to actually like try and grab them and throw them down and have relations with them. If you create, because I mean, it could occur in a workplace where somebody's like, hey, let's go out, hey, let's go out, hey, let's go out. Or, hey, let's go out, he or she says no, and it's like, wow, I hope you enjoy this demotion that you just had. Yeah, that's why in the workplace you're not supposed to be able to do that anymore. I mean, people used to get away with that all the time. I mean, you hear about it if you've been following any of the Me Too stuff over the last several years. You know, women are like, this was wrong and this was wrong. Oh, and it also occurred in the workplace. Yeah.
So should they like fine whatever or like?
Monica Lewinsky was going along with it.
No, I'm talking about Paula.
No, she said no. Yeah, she said no. She said no. She did not want it. What do you think? Should he be fired or not?
I mean, the workplace can remind him of the
Can set a better example. Yeah. Okay. So you take like the Frank approach and go, can't go beyond that. We'll get ready close to vote here in just a second.
It's weird how
That was in the 90s. All right, so we've come a long way, hopefully, since the 90s.
So nowadays, because like, I'm not gonna say where I work, but it happened where I work, where our managers got fired.
Yeah, well, notice the last part of your sentence. And they got fired.
They did get fired, they were,
Oh, they didn't get fired?
did.
Oh, they did, right, yeah.
no,
Yeah.
but it still happened, so like, I feel like, to set an example, he should have just let himself be in peace. He should have just taken the consequence to set an example, maybe we wouldn't deal with this crap.
Well, and it was interesting because was there somebody to take over for the job of president?
Yes, yeah.
Vice President Al Gore. And I'm sure the people around Al Gore are like, please, just quit, just quit, just quit. As it was, Clinton didn't quit. He stayed on right to the very end. And when Al Gore was running against George W. Bush, it was a very close race. And apparently, some people are like, oh, we're just tired of the whole thing. And they voted for Bush instead of Gore, because otherwise Gore might have been the president. Okay? We'll get 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 seconds, and then we'll vote.
Well, I think that both of them could be booted because both of them are wrong. You know,
Both?
the girl who had a relationship.
Oh, she wasn't on the job anymore.
Okay, well, yeah.
Her internship was over.
Yeah, I think that should be a given.
Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, she wasn't on the job anymore. And most people know Clinton for a lot of different things and so forth. Most people know Monica Lewinsky, and you can read about her in the news. She's like, I really wish that I had never done that because now in my life, most people know me as the young woman who had a relationship with the president. I mean, that was a poor choice.
So, I think now I say for mine, he should be, like, kicked out because he did it with a few women in the past, while he was married, and he just kept doing it over and over, and then lying under oath, and his apology, which seems fake and repeating the same points over and over again.
So those two other factors about cheating too much and a lame apology influence the main thing, which is the lying under oath.
I want to answer to, does having sexual relationships with other women affect the United States?
That's what the defenders were saying. This does not go to the job of being president. It's a personal sort of ishy thing that he has with his wife. And that's what the other people would come back. It's like, you can lie about all kinds of stuff, but when you go under oath, that's a big deal. All right, you ready? Let's take that. First one, raise your hand if you would say, I vote for impeachment, and if you were in the Senate, I vote to convict and remove. All right? 1, 2, oh my gosh. Okay, Frank, this is the one that you were saying that you were in favor of. You have to pay attention, Frank, here. If you're going to be here on a blue day, these guys are sharp. Blue day is sharp. Okay, how many of you guys say it doesn't rise to the level of impeachment and conviction? Got a job. Okay? So, in this, would there have been a majority of you? Yes. There would have easily. There's a majority. What about it, Vera? Did you look at the numbers here? Was there enough for 2/3? There was enough for 2/3. How effective was the defense of Bill Clinton in the American public? 61% of Americans being polled said do not impeach and remove. You guys were right in here. And I would say, this is interesting because I've noticed this over the last 25, 30 years or so forth. The standard has gotten tougher. I think one of the benefits and all the craziness of the Me Too situation and so forth is people are like, what Frank was saying at the get-go. If you do that on the job, you lose your job, just like you said. And if you're stuck in an older pattern where you could get away with it, times have changed. Okay? Write this down. Trump was impeached by the House, and then he was not convicted by the Senate. That actually took place in the year 2020. We'll touch on that very briefly next time, but now is the time to wipe it down. Don't you just want to clean down those desks? Wipe things down and go take a shower and just like, Ick, ick, ick. Don't drink hand sanitizer. That's not how it's used. Oh my gosh. And don't take, what is that, like disinfectant stuff and spray it on your tongue or whatever. Don't do that. Yes?
Didn't the same thing happen to Donald Trump when he first came into the office?
Okay,
Not, it was different charge. We'll talk about what the thing is. Yeah, we've had actually, on the bottom row, 3 presidents deal with impeachment. 2 of them were impeached. 1, he resigned. And, but they all stayed on. Will the next president be impeached and removed from office? I don't know. As soon as you finish wiping down, did you wipe down your desk? Okay, then if you need to use the restroom? Okay.